Hi, everyone. My name is Frank DeCarlo, and welcome to New Jersey Dam's live panel discussion, Dam Success, Remote Working, Part 1. Today is the first of two-part remote working digital asset management webinars, where we're going to learn the inner secrets of how the practitioner, specifically DAM professionals, have made working remotely a best practice in creating greater efficiencies to how digital asset management is now being done. In brief, digital asset management is comprehensive software that safely stores, organizes, and shares digital media files like photos and videos. The coronavirus pandemic has disrupted the way millions of us are working. And we'll touch upon later near the end of the webinar how we can all stop the virus's spread as a result of being here today. But the cause and effect, confusion and disarray of COVID-19 is undeniable. How we are adapting and our working will, of course, someday dissipate, but I think you'll agree, evident in your tuning in today, that aspects of remote work revolution is here to stay. Our webinar today addresses that even before the pandemic, how many have incorporated working from home as a common practice in their experience as a digital asset management professional. It's a very relevant topic, and we have an amazing panel. Hello, panel. I want to take a moment and allow our experts to introduce themselves. Maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself, your name, what you do, and how you got started working remotely with DAM. Henrik, why don't we start with you?
Thanks, Frank. I'm Henrik de Gyor. I'm a remote consultant, a podcaster, and a writer. I'm the blogger behind Another Damn Blog, the podcaster behind Another DAM podcast, and an independent consultant behind Another DAM consultancy. So I'm a writer where you can find all my books on Amazon, and I actually have 7 different podcast series, including Another Damn podcast, which you can find on henrikdegyor.com. Thanks.
And thank you, Henrik. Jennifer.
Thanks, Frank. So my name is Jennifer Anna, and I work for the World Wildlife Fund, which is an international conservation NGO. Right now, I am concurrently leading the digital asset management platform for both the U.S. offices and globally for WWF International, and I officially started working remote. My headquarters are in Washington, D.C. I now work remote from New York City, and I started doing so in November 2019.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jan, good to have you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ian Matzen, and I am the blogger from tameyourassets.com. I'm currently the Systems and Digital Initiatives Librarian at Westfield State College in Western Massachusetts. But I've been working with digital assets and in digital asset management for about 6 years, 5 of which have been working from home. And I'm looking forward to speaking about that. One thing I did want to mention was to thank all of you for working at home and keeping safe and keeping others safe. So I know this is a huge change, and it can be difficult and likely is for many of you. So thank you for doing your part.
Excellent. And last but not least, Theresa, welcome.
Hi, I'm Theresa Burt. I work with USAA. I'm their digital asset manager there. It's been a 3-year effort. We're working to launch their DAM. And before that, I worked with Shaw Industries, and that role was half and half remote, and working with USAA is 100% remote. And I'll get into more on that in a little bit.
Terrific. Thank you, Theresa. All right. We usually start things off with a quick poll. So I'll put that up for everybody. If you wouldn't mind answering that, I'll explain a little bit about this online conferencing technology. We are live, and we'll save the last 15 minutes or so for questions from our audience. If you have a question for our panel, you can submit that by clicking on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. If you'd like to speak directly to the panel, please indicate and we'll bring you up to include you as a panelist. And you don't have to use your camera. Let's see, got about 50%, 60% voting. All right, let's end the poll. I'll share the results. How long have you been involved in digital asset management? Looks like we're about 3 to 8 years and plus. The majority of people. How large is the company you represent? Got 1,000 plus employees. Seems to be the majority. And am I comfortable working from home in DAM? A lot of people strongly agree, which is great. Lends itself perfectly to our conversation today. All right. Excellent. All right, so let's get to our first question. What are the roadblocks in today's work environment, and what have you done to overcome working remotely? Let me rephrase that. What are the roadblocks in today's working environment, and what have you done to overcome in working remotely?
Yeah, so in that, I mentioned that I had worked with Shaw Industries flooring company, and during my interview, they told me that I was with them for 5 years. During the interview, they had told me that it would never be a remote position, and there was a lot of travel involved going to and from work. It was about an hour commute each way, and it was getting very taxing on my family. And I approached my leadership and said, hey, is there any way that I can, make this remote or half remote? And they were very receptive. And so we started off with a trial remote position, and I did it 50% remote. So I worked Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and in the office, and then Tuesday, Thursday from home. And then the next week, Tuesday, Thursday from the office, and Monday, Wednesday, Friday from home. And it worked very well because we were able to, attend meetings that I was supposed to be at or that were helpful for me to be in person. And then I was able to just make it work for all of the meetings that happened. And then after that, I decided that I really enjoyed working remotely and saw that this position could be 100%. And so I started looking for a position that would provide that opportunity, and USAA had this position as listed as 100% remote. And so it's been really exciting to be able to work in this role 100% remote.
And I can follow up with Theresa because my experience is a bit different. So I've been working for World Wildlife Fund for 7 years. I actually moved from New York City to Washington, D.C. to work for WWF, as it's known internationally. And so I started working in the office. The headquarters are in D.C., as I said. And so I guess my answer is two-part. Because WWF is an international organization, the people that I was working with to implement and eventually manage the platform are actually based out of UK, Switzerland, and Singapore. So I sort of felt already that I was working remote because I was constantly in communication with people that weren't in the office. In terms of actually making the leap to work remote, over the last 7 years at WWF in the US, there has been kind of a progression or evolution towards becoming more amenable to working remote. And so we've seen the development of different policies, whether that be in IT or HR, that has kind of socialized the organization and made different sort of making management more amenable. I'll also say that there was a few pioneers that kind of went before me and requested to work remote and had been working remote. And so it was more socialized in our office. And so when I finally was able to make the ask, the policies, and again, there was a number of colleagues that I had worked with, or that worked for WWF that was working remote. I'll also say that even though I was in DC, a lot of our contractors, our long-term contractor, Stephanie, who's amazing, actually was working and still does from Hoboken. So a lot of the people that we were working with, even when I was in DC, were actually located in different states. So we kind of were, again, sort of working remotely with those people because they weren't necessarily in the office.
So I started working remotely about 6 years ago. I had first started working at America's Test Kitchen in Boston, and at the time I lived in Providence, Rhode Island, and it would take me about 2 hours each way to get to work and get back home. So there was a bit of time. There would also be the days on which the trains would stop or run really slowly because there were leaves on the tracks or high winds or whatever the reason there was. So sometimes my commute jumped up to about 4 hours each way, and that was really difficult. But I stuck it out for about a year. And then there would be these snow days, and I was in the middle of a big enterprise taxonomy project at the time, and the people that I was working with were all in other parts of the United States. So I made the request to work from home on those snow days, and little by little I started working from home more consistently because it just was much more conducive to getting the work done. I wasn't being interrupted as much. I had more of a better environment to focus and do my work. And then my family and I moved to Western Massachusetts, and my commute jumped from being 1.5, 2 hours each way to almost 3 hours. And sitting in traffic was just was going to be a colossal waste of time. I could be doing a lot more work in that time or spending time with my family. So I put together a proposal, which I've posted on my blog, tameyourassets.com, and essentially, put it, into writing, and talked about some of the advantages and my plan to make the proposal work. And I ended up, it's not in that proposal, but I ended up actually. As part of the request, going into the office once a week to at least hold face-to-face meetings. But after about 3 months during that probationary period, the director of our department said, "You really, it's up to you. You don't need to come in." And I think at that point, I took that as a win, because the company culture really was at that time, at the very beginning, was dead set against working from home. And so I felt like I was one of the pioneers to kind of break new ground there, and more people have been working from home. So that's my story there at America's Test Kitchen, and I think it worked pretty well. I hope that other of you will have as successful stories.
Before I was a consultant, I was a digital asset manager, and I suggested to my employer at the time to work from home, since we were all issued laptops from day one. And we were actually running out of office space shortly afterwards. So we were working more and more work at home because it made sense to have more space and actually get the work done regardless of the time frame, because we were doing early morning calls and evening calls and things like that to get the work done at a startup. That slowly became a publicly traded company. And a few years later, I started consulting. And that was in New York, and I lived in Virginia. So I would commute from Virginia to New York every week because, well, my wife wants to see me. Big surprise. And you may know this familiar feeling because you may have families too. So beyond that, I actually converted all of my consulting clients after I would meet with them a few times, establish trust, establish access to tools, and know who the players were, of who I needed to speak to, stakeholders, sponsors, et cetera. And I would start working from home almost after a short period of time, especially when it made sense. And I was actually more efficient typically and more connected with what was actually going on within the organization and what needed to be actually done in a priority order when I was working from home than it was on site. I didn't have to wait for meeting rooms to be free or anything like that. And in the past years that I've been a consultant, I've converted almost all of them from on-site to work at home. And as of last year, I converted from not even going on site. It's started working from home from day one. And I'll continue that well after the pandemic is over, because there's not much reason to do what we do anymore from anywhere else. It's just a matter of transitioning that mindset, and where location doesn't really matter anymore. It's a matter of time zones and getting the work done and doing results for the client or the employer in most respects. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Common theme was it sounded like you all proactively went after the concept of working from home because it made sense to you and presented your case and was successful. Similarly, when we had invested in a data center, that was basically because of the idea of trucks running into telephone poles on Route 22 where our original offices were, and we'd be down sometimes. And that wasn't working, especially when we were getting first involved in digital asset management and other features of having customers access our servers. And, so that just led to the ability during snowstorms and whatnot to work from home. And sure enough, most of our people now work remotely. It's just a natural. All right, good. Next question. What remote communication tools do we have? How are you guys working?
I can go first. So I pretty much use them all, but I think I primarily use email. I know it's antiquated technology, but I still use it. It's great having a paper trail. I do use my email as a database to search through. I know that's not best practice, but still use it that way. And I use Slack as a messenger or an IM tool to communicate with folks my colleagues. And then believe it or not, I still use the phone. Still, if I can't get a hold of someone urgently, either through email or Slack, my default is phone. I tend to get to people's attention a lot faster that way. But I use Zoom, WebEx, Skype, Microsoft Teams, and I've done GoToMeeting as well. I really like Google Docs. I'm not sure if there's an equivalent somewhere if using Google Docs is a security issue for your company, but I really like it. You can collaborate on documents in real time with other people. And I think the intranet, and that might be the SharePoint site at your company, is a great tool to disseminate and communicate information out. And also in that same respect, I think recording videos is a great tool as well. I think when I have to respond to a trouble ticket, sometimes just recording a quick video on a resolution is much better than writing up instructions or even trying to communicate that over Slack.
I'll go. So one thing that we use as well is Blue Jeans. That one's another one that's been helpful for some of our partners that are not able to get into our VPN. We are able to use our Blue Jeans link with them. And then also we use Box for collaboration. We do not have Google Docs. I do miss them because they were at my other company. But we use Box, and it's very helpful as well for those documents that you need real time to share with everyone. And then as far as projects go, the way that we monitor and communicate and make sure that everyone's tasks are completed as a team, we use Rally, and it used to be called Agile Central. We work in the Agile methodology, and so keeping track of all of our features and tasks and user stories, it's very helpful for us to collaborate on all of our upcoming projects. So that's how we are able, because the majority of my team is remote, and so in order for us to really understand what the other person's doing. We use that tool mainly, and then before that we used Asana. So those were some great tools that were very helpful for communication and keeping us all in alignment on what we were doing with all of our projects. So.
Yeah, so for myself, again, because I was communicating a lot with international colleagues before I even went remote, we were kind of just using a triage of Skype and WebEx and I think Google Hangout for a number of years. WWF did something kind of brilliant a year or two ago, which I'm sure is serving the network beautifully now, is that they decided to transition over to Zoom and implemented mandatory Zoom training for all of the international or all of the global offices. And so what that meant is that you were required to have a day at home, even if you weren't remote, and you had to take all of your meetings via Zoom and sort of just understand what that experience is like. One of the, which I guess is now kind of basic Zoom online meeting courtesy, is that you have to be on video, so people need to see you when you're joining a meeting. There's obviously bandwidth issues sometimes where you need to turn your video off. Like right now, my colleague in Malaysia, we don't look at each other because otherwise we can't talk to each other. So that has been something that really has served us so well during this time and will continue to. Again, right now I'm kind of moving between my international responsibilities and my U.S. responsibilities, which has been very interesting in terms of the tools that I have, because the network is a Google shop, the U.S. is a Microsoft one, so that's been interesting. And so we use, like in the US, Trello as a project management tool, which I love, love, love. Kind of hoping to socialize that more with my IT colleagues or my international colleagues as we move forward. Recently, I think right before COVID started to happen, our US IT upgraded our VPN and it works seamlessly. It really feels like you're logging into your server versus something more like Citrix, which is a little bit more ornery and difficult to get through. The one thing, and I always talk about it because it's been such a game changer working for an international NGO with with offices all over the place, has been Facebook Workplace. It is, as I said, been a game changer in the way that you can communicate with offices in developing countries that don't have the kind of IT infrastructure that a larger office like mine has. Everyone knows how to use Facebook, so everyone is already trained on the functionality, on the behavior, and it's just has proven to be a much more immediate and easier way to reach out or learn about some of the things that impact the digital asset management system. So for example, somebody will post a bunch of professionally taken photographs on the Global Communicators page. And so I can sort of reach out and say, hey, we'd love to get that into the DAM. How can we work with you to do that? We also do a lot of advocacy for the DAM on Workplace, letting people know about new acquisitions, about training. We try to advocate for people that are good citizens on the network in terms of sharing. So again, I'm always kind of evangelizing for Facebook Workplace, but it's really has helped the DAM significantly. And we also do newsletters, email newsletters.
For me as a consultant, it varies on the client itself. Sometimes the larger the client, the more buttoned up they seem to be and have things locked down to the suite of tools they allow and whitelist. And essentially they issue a laptop so they can monitor everything. They control everything. They have screen capture for e-discovery and things like that. And then also it comes with the basic tools for communication and collaboration, and they don't really allow typically others. So often that's the Microsoft suite of tools. Otherwise, it's, of course, many people have their own laptops like myself. So if they don't have the required tool set and required objects of that to be used, or tool set to be used. It's often Slack, BlueJeans, Zoom, Skype, Google Drive, Citrix by WebEx, WhatsApp sometimes, and other web-based tools, depending on what the DAM vendor is using, because often it's regarding support, right? You're supporting the tool for the organization beyond the vendor's abilities and the implementer's abilities as well. So it's working with between the client and the DAM vendor, and having those trouble tickets coming in and getting settled and getting the work done. Thank you.
Very good. We had a question pop in that is relevant to what we're talking about. Curious how those with corporate VoIP through something like Jabber leverage that, as well as project management tools like Jira and other Atlassian products. You guys coming up against that?
We use
typically
Jira at USAA. So, and basically we share the screen and work through Jira that way. So we'd have a meeting through Skype, share the screen on Jira, and then work through the meeting and adjust as needed. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but that's how we handle our Jira stuff.
Yeah, and typically when I'm using Atlassian tools like Jira and Confluence and all that fun stuff, first you log into the VoIP or the tool with VPN, so it's secured, and then it works most of the time, depending on the bandwidth, of course, and the connection that you have. So as long as it's stable and strong enough bandwidth, I would recommend speedtest.net to test your internet regardless of where you are first, and then move forward with connecting to whatever you need to connect to, so that you have the appropriate connections to project management tools and Jira and anything else you might need in the suite of tools that you have to use.
Good. So how is progress measured when working remotely? You like that one?
Yeah, I can jump in. So this can be a little bit tricky, but I think in the past what's been successful for me is to count on those performance reviews that you might have once or twice a year, but certainly on those one-on-one meetings that you have with your boss or your supervisor. During the meetings, you communicate the goals I communicate the goals that I've accomplished, those that I'm working on, and those that I want to jump on next. I think that's a good way just to check in. I think having open communication with your supervisor or the person that you report to is very important, because they might bring a perspective to the table that you weren't aware of. They may know something you don't about some initiative that's going on that's just been discussed that you weren't privy to. I think it's very important to have regular sprint reviews and showcases. I think you need to get out in front of the teams of people that you were building and working for, your constituents, as it were. And so if you are agile, at the end of each sprint, get your team together, review what you've accomplished, what you haven't accomplished, and then showcase your accomplishments to the stakeholders, because I think they have a vested interest. They've likely been a part of your work, or they're aware of it, and so when you showcase that work, they see how much value you bring to the company, but also they're feeling some. They're feeling as if the investment, the time they've put into it is paid off. I think one of the other aspects is keeping track and reporting metrics. Some of the metrics that I've reported on are, the number of your closure rate of trouble tickets, how long it's taken to close those. And then you can look through the number of logins into the digital asset management system by department, and perhaps focus on those departments you've just rolled out to see whether you've been successful in your rollout efforts. And then the number of downloads of assets certainly is a good metric to have, especially those assets that are a bit older. So you can make the case that digital assets are being reused. So the one thing I did want to kind of just mention, not a con, but as a potential risk, is that sometimes our performance can be tied to the system uptime. And as a digital asset manager, unless I have a system that I'm developing, which I never have, you're likely working with a team of your vendor team. Or maybe it's a cloud-based system, and you have no control over whether a system is down or not. So I think there's a certain amount of education that you might have to go through just so that folks know that if a system is down, you're doing everything you can to bring it back up and to get regular information from the vendor that you're working with. Or if you have an in-house system that you've developed, that you're working closely with the developers there in-house to bring it back online.
I would agree. I agree with everything that Jan has just said. His note about working with something that's potentially more out of box, or even if it's a platform that is a sophisticated one, but you don't necessarily have a lot of control in terms of having an internal development. That's something that we're actually having some challenges with right now, is sort of the expectations for the platform internally versus what it can actually deliver. And so there's a lot of communications to sort of educate different stakeholders on what that looks like. I would just add, and this is something that I'm continually learning, is that when you're reporting to different stakeholders, what you're reporting on and what your tone should maybe be different. You should just be mindful of your audience and what will be useful to them. Actually, one thing that has come up in these discussions with us together as a panel that I had even thought about was that you should potentially highlight or keep an eye on your metrics during this unfortunate time. We had a discussion about it as a group, and lo and behold, we looked at our metrics and we're having like 15,000 more downloads the last quarter. And so that was something, I think that was a positive indicator that the system is serving in the way that it should be, especially during this time.
Yeah, I think Jan pretty much covered how our team uses Agile to feature and show our progress, and we're able to set yearly goals and then work quarterly towards those yearly goals. So we set yearly goals with our stakeholders, and then every quarter showcase what we've accomplished in that increment. So we're very much an agile company, and so it's very useful for us when we're working remotely. There's no way to deny what progress we've made, because we're delivering features, we're delivering stories, and so it's very useful in measuring that. So that's basically all I was going to share.
So I guess it depends also on your roles and responsibilities. So mine vary depending on what I'm contracted to do for a fixed period of time. So depending on those, it could be uploads, it could be downloads, it could be migrations of X number of databases into a said dam, or deprecating dams from many dams into one, or vice versa for some odd reason. Hopefully that won't happen. And then the number of uses of the assets, if there's rights management involved, and also user counts, whether it's registered daily, weekly, or concurrent, right? QAing the metadata and how many errors you have found within that, and tracking that error rate, whether it goes down or up, and how you can fix that. Downtime, especially if it's tied to your SLA with your damn vendor. because you want to have the least amount of downtime for obvious reasons as possible. And then, of course, assets tagged if that's part of your responsibility, or you're overseeing assets being tagged by someone else, where someone else is handling the metadata tagging and you're overseeing the consistency of it and correcting it or sending it back when it's inconsistent as like, oh, you need to follow this format, not that format that's made up. And basically just measuring things that matter to your stakeholders within the institution that you work in and understanding what matters to them. And so that they can see steady progress in those metrics, and if there's a dip, they can understand and have that conversation as to why that might be occurring. If it's not obvious, and if you haven't added into your, say, weekly report or last time you spoke with them, around what the challenges are of the day or the week or at the time that they may be aware of if you're doing your job, and cheerleading that when it's going well and promoting the usage of the system, right? How many people have you trained, right? How many people needed repeated training and again and again and again? or do they get it the first few times because most of the others did already? So not everyone's made for DAM, of course, and it's definitely shifted in as far as mindset is concerned. Now it's even more lonely, right? Unless you communicate with your teams and your users as to what's working well, what could be improved, et cetera, and understanding what matters to them, so that you're not just stuck in trying to read the jar, the label on the jar from inside the jar.
Good. Questions are rolling in. We're going to answer one more of ours, then we're going to get into some more of the questions. So I'm going to just remind the audience to use the Q&A chat, or excuse me, the Q&A icon to enter your questions. Next one, how do you suggest going about introducing remote work to your employer if you're not already or would like to introduce doing more of your work remotely? What are your suggestions? We touched upon earlier how you've all been proactive. What do you think we need to do today, or somebody that's starting out that wants to?
Well, I think the first part is you have to ask, right? If you don't ask, you don't get. It's really that simple. Even if you're the first person to ask, you can help set that precedent if necessary. And if they say no, ask them why not. I mean, if you're not working from home, you're probably not employed right now, realistically speaking, unless you're moving physical objects. That's a different issue. Digital asset managers typically aren't moving physical objects aside from a mouse, right? And that doesn't really count because you're not moving it very far. So beyond that, I think it's a matter of having that conversation with the people who are managing you. And Jan wrote a post to it, which is really, really insightful, which he'll get into about that. And Theresa and Jennifer will share their insights on this too. But I think it's a matter of asking and figuring out what the hurdles are, if there are any. So they go, oh, we've always done it this way. That's a bad answer, especially today, right? But beyond this, there is no reason why digital asset management cannot be done remotely, in permanence, from home or wherever you happen to be. As long as you have an internet connection and a laptop and access to the said tools, where's the challenge? It's mostly the challenge is the people. You don't have to justify commercial real estate spend, especially if you don't have enough, for the sake of argument, and just to sit in a cubicle farm or to wait for the next meeting room. When we're meeting right now, there's no issue there. You can communicate just as well. And you can have a whiteboard. Zoom has a whiteboarding feature if you really need a whiteboard. So it's easier to communicate this way. And you're going to be more connected by having very short conversations that can be scheduled and just doing it. So it's a matter of scheduling your time, getting the work done, and more importantly, showing the results, right? That's all they care about. So you continue to have relevancy, right? And you show results because you have those metrics that we just talked about, right? And you show, oh, this is the progress. By the way, I'm still doing this work, even though you don't really know what I'm doing most of the time, because most people don't know what digital asset management is or what we do typically. The people on this call probably particularly know, right? Because we know what we do on a daily basis. But your employers, they don't necessarily really know. They know you're really important. They don't, and probably even more now that everyone needs digital assets, even more so, right? Because you can't go down the street anymore and go pick up some digital assets. So it's a matter of having what you already need and acquiring more, right? When the time comes. But, how do you find it, right? How is this, training those individuals? Maybe you were training more users. I don't know. But it's a matter of keeping everyone in the loop with what the value is of not only your output, but also the tool that you're supporting and the people that you're supporting as far as users.
I would add, in terms of actually approaching your stake or your supervisor and making the ask, I would definitely be versed in whatever policies currently exist. You want to be able to walk your supervisor through that. And I think you'd also want to have a little plan together. What will it look like? How many times a week will you be meeting with your supervisor to keep them abreast of your progress? How will you do that? Will that be on the phone or Zoom or email? How many times a year will you be coming to the physical office? Will you be paying for those expenses? Will you be able to pay for those expenses? You will probably want to know from IT, if you don't have a loaner laptop, will you be able to have a loaner laptop? So you want to be able to answer and address your supervisor's concerns about the logistics of working remotely, and you want to bring that into the conversation and be ready to present that. And just also sort of be able to communicate how you're going to sort of maintain the same level of same level of progress that you have been working remote or working in the office. And I think you also just need to be mindful when you're figuring this out that it will be a transition, like as the whole world is finding out right now. So it can be things like, I have the luxury of having an office, but you really want to just think through like how you're going to make this transition, because the better you can do that for yourself, the better you can do it for your supervisors.
The only other thing I was going to mention is if they're leery about allowing you to work remotely 100% of the time, is come to them with a trial. Say, can we try this for 30 days? Can we try this for 60 days, 90 days, and then evaluate. And if they're willing to do that, then you can show that the progress and the work that you're doing is not going to change, and it may even improve by working remotely. So, that's just another way to come at it and approach your manager or leadership with that.
And just to add a few things, if anybody else in the company or in your department works from home, seek those people out to ask how they were able to transition into a remote role. I think that's helpful. Also, I think documenting examples where working from home would have been valuable. I mean, one of the main and kind of unfortunate events was the internet went down in the office in Boston, and no one could work. And I was at home working and being very productive, so there was no problem. Fortunately, our systems were off-site, so that worked out really well. But I think absolutely, as Jennifer had said, have a plan in place. And that all starts with asking your supervisor whether it's possible and what concerns they might have, listing those concerns, and then addressing them in some written kind of formal way so that you're addressing them. And I think there's so many advantages of working from home, and I'll write a blog post about it at some point. But as Henrik de Gyor had said, there really, our work as digital asset managers lends itself to working from home. There's no reason why we have to go into an office. I'm a social person. I like being in the same room as them, and I like going out and having a drink once in a while. And sure, you can maybe do that when you travel or whatnot. But I think working from home has a lot of real advantages, professionally as well as personally. So I think there's no reason why managing digital assets can't be done remotely.
Someone's asking if they think employers are more apt to consider hiring remote workers when people aren't able to relocate and just being open. Might want to mention at this point that our next part of this webinar series is going to be around having employers that have been practicing hiring remote workers and remote teams, speaking about the benefits. But what's your take, guys? Think employers are more apt today?
I mean, I don't think there's going to be a choice. I think that's the reality it's our new reality. At WWF, they're giving careful consideration about reopening the offices, but there's going to be people, understandably, who aren't going to feel comfortable for a myriad of reasons why working face-to-face with their colleagues is just not going to be a possibility. So I think as this situation continues, like the policies and plans and how amenable organizations are to this is going to progress and evolve substantially. I just don't think there's going to be a choice right now in terms of whether or not, I don't think there's going to be I think this COVID has changed everything.
Yeah, and just to kind of jump on at the tail end of that, I'd also wanted to say was I think even before the pandemic, there has been a shortage of digital asset managers, in particular in non-metropolitan areas. There's obviously a need for people to manage digital assets throughout the United States, and there just aren't enough of us spread out enough to do that work. So I think many companies were seriously thinking of opening up those roles, those positions to remote workers, and now all the more reason. I think they have more reason to do that. And I think all of us, whether we like it or not, we're working remotely. We are essentially gathering and accumulating more fodder or more reasons to show our supervisors that we can do it efficiently, so we can make the case for it.
I track damn jobs for the past several years, not because I'm looking for a full-time employment, but because I want to track the market for a variety of reasons. And I noticed back in December and January, so December of last year and January of this year, before the pandemic, there were 1,200 unfilled damn positions in the United States. 1,200. Now there are about 400. And that's just because mostly the pandemic. I recently contacted someone who was hired as a digital asset manager, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago. And they're hired as a remote DAM manager. And I think it behooves every institution worldwide, not just in the United States, to hire talent remotely that they don't have to physically come in. Maybe you fly them in once for the sake of argument after the pandemic is over and it's safe to do so. But realistically speaking, why do they have to be physically in an office? If you establish trust, right, and you have access and you know who the players are, who you need to speak to on a regular basis, and you have the contact information for the users so you can contact them, and your vendor, of course, and whoever else is in play, what's missing? Why do you have to be in an office? Really? 1,200 damn jobs. And they're like, oh, you have to be here because we've always done it this way. It's always been done this way. Bad reason, right? Unacceptable. Right now, there's 400 some damn jobs. And 10 of them are remote. So every time I have a consulting prospect contact me, I say, is it remote? One this year has said yes, even before I asked. They said, here's the job profile for the contract. It's going to be a year. It's going to be remote. Great. You're in play. Everyone else, I got contacted 3 times this week for the same job, 3 different recruiters. They're like, oh, we need you in some other state for a year. When can you start? It's like, I'm not. I'm not even coming to your place. It doesn't matter what state you're in. And it doesn't matter what state I'm in either, right? It's a matter of getting the work done. And we're able to do it now here with a laptop, with internet. So what's the problem? So get over the challenge of, we've always done it this way. It has to be here. Most of the written policies don't actually exist that say you have to be at your desk to do work. The butts and seats scenario is kind of old school, and it doesn't fly anymore. So learn how to manage your people remotely. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Henrik. I would also say, as someone who's recently had to scramble to find contractors, well, first of all, I've been working I was in DC. My sort of second in command has been working in Hoboken for the last 4 years, and we have a really fantastic working relationship, and we've been able to build a really fantastic library. Recently, I've been scrambling to find contractors, and having the freedom to look outside of a physical office has really saved me in terms of having just more options in terms of talent. And so I can't imagine what it would have looked like for me to have to focus on one particular geographic area. It's really made the process a lot easier for just to find the right fit. And actually, I would say, as working for an international organization, having someone who has been versed in working remotely, I almost think at this point now would be a requirement of the job.
Yeah, and just to jump in on that, I think in my roles as a digital asset manager, you sometimes need development help. And generally that development help is going to be part-time. And to ask someone to come in, who has the experience with your platform, which isn't always the case, is difficult. So having them be remote to do a lot of the development work on the system it's much easier to find someone who's working remotely.
All great points. And that trap of that's the way it's always been done. Is rearing its head here again, right? So hopefully this webinar and the start of talking more and more about how DAM is really easily integrated in how we're working today can help the marketplace. 1,200 jobs in December, and that's amazing. The fact that it shrunk to 400 sounds to me like it's a direct representation of what Henrik is hitting upon, which is employers are right away pulling the job description because they feel it can't be done remotely. Someone just asked, how would we recommend approaching a company about turning a job listing from on-site to remote? Again, this might be a helpful start. The next part to this webinar series, when employers are actually talking about their benefits and some of the names that you'll see and the ways in which they've made their teams and DAM practitioners successful, is going to help. But anything off the top of your heads as far as how you might approach an employer today? And I noticed there's this job listing, and here's some of the ways in which I think we can work together, but it will be remotely because this is the day and age that we're in.
Theresa and Jan, I think, have a lot more experience with this, but my suggestion would be to be very upfront about it in your cover letter and in your resume, and with that, also just sort of address the ways that you've successfully managed to work remotely when you're applying for a job.
Well, I know in the role that I'm currently in, they had opened it to the San Antonio area and did not find the talent that they were looking for. And so then they did open it up nationwide. And so, I mean, I agree with Jennifer, making sure that you're adding that in your cover letter and highlighting the quality that they're getting. And it doesn't matter that they're not in the area or that they wouldn't be able to come in. And then even, again, taking a chance on the talent, on you for the role and challenging them to say, if I don't perform in this amount of time, then maybe open it back up and see that it's, it has to be in the office. But I think that they'll find that that's just not the case.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree. I think also if you're looking for work and all you're seeing are on location positions being posted, you should still apply to ones that really fit your skill set. And I think that, as Jennifer pointed out, be very, very upfront, transparent with what that you want the role to be remote. And I think, if you can pitch it, let's do this for 3 months and I'll show you that I can do it. And I have this experience and here's how I've done it in the past and made it work. I think we'll put you in the running. But I know how daunting it is to apply for jobs. You sometimes don't hear back at all. Each application should be tailored to the role and to the company, and it takes some work. But I think it's worth it, especially if you are looking for work. Spend your time tailoring that application, and you won't get a remote job, or you won't get that job unless you go for it and you apply for it. So even though it's not advertised as remote, I absolutely agree that you should just make the pitch for it.
I just wanted to add something before the rest of the group speaks. So right now, I think a lot of companies have a human resources hiring freeze, which means that a lot of organizations and companies are scrambling to fill jobs with contractors. And because of the current situation with COVID, I think people have to be more adaptable than, maybe they have been before. And again, they're trying to find solutions. Maybe they're just short-term solutions right now. But again, I know at WWF, because of the situation, there's an HR freeze. But so we're trying to find roles that can be filled by contractors. And those will definitely, I think, in some situations be remote contractors. So in a way, it might be the time to strike might be now.
And when you're going to have that conversation, typically, there's a couple calls, hopefully not just going to call you into the office like some companies still do to this day, which doesn't make any sense. If you're not in the metro area of where this employer happens to be, it's usually a handful of calls. So it's usually first with HR to vet you, and then secondly with the hiring manager at the very minimum. Sometimes I've had up to 11 calls for some contract jobs, which still don't make any sense. That usually shows that either there's too many cooks in the kitchen or they don't know what they want. It's usually more like they don't know what they want and they're just trying to vet. Because again, many people don't know what we do, right? So they're trying to vet somebody that they don't know, and for a role they don't know what they're going to do. So that's part of the challenge that they face. Because if you've never had a dam in your organization, what are you going to do here? And so you can't hire like that, right? Because if you're hiring an experienced person, they were like, I can take the reins, but you have to give me the tools that I need and the access that I need as well. So it's really about having in those first conversations, so is this role going to be, you can ask HR, you can ask the hiring manager, have you considered making this remote? And if they say no, we insist on having you here, you can ask why. And because you're more likely to take it if you're not. So keep that in mind because it's going to help.
I say it every time. It's a quick hour. That was great. Henrik, someone's asking me or asking us if you have some of these job sites. I don't know if you want to pop that in the chat or if you have some off the top of your head where you see the current 400. But someone's
Sure.
asking. might be.
Yeah, almost all the dam jobs that you can find, realistically speaking, are either on Indeed, LinkedIn jobs, or Dice if they're super technical jobs. So dice.com, indeed.com, and you literally type in digital asset management in quotes, not just dam, because otherwise you get the hydroelectric type jobs, which aren't going to help you, or search metadata, things like that, and you find those jobs. So if you type in digital asset management in those sites, you're going to find most of those jobs that are posted right now. And then you can filter to what you really want, as far as location or not, remote, and also how much you're willing to be paid, or wanting to be paid, more importantly. So I highly recommend filtering to that and taking a look on a regular basis, even if you're gainfully employed, because this job market is not getting better right now. People are being hired quite fast, but as we already know, there's over 20 million unemployed. I don't know that many. I've actually seen a couple, but I don't know of many digital asset managers who've been laid off. My guess is they had to do something which was very tied to their institution that had a lot of traffic involved, people traffic, and they were shut down that way. So if the people aren't there, like I say at a park, right, a theme park, if there's no people at the theme park, maybe they don't need you to filter all those photos for the sake of argument. So we know what happened in Orlando, right? That's not going to get better until it opens, things like that. But for the most part, digital asset managers have regardless of the economy, they have, unless the institution stops making digital assets, you have a safe job.
Very good. I posted in the chat a practitioner survey put together by one of our very own panelists, Henrik. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, be greatly appreciated. Henrik is always formulating some terrific ways in which to share results and help support all of us in our DAM journeys. As well, we talked a little bit about ways in which we can help stop the spread of the virus. And we put in the chat a couple of different charities or places in which you can donate. Feel free to do some research on your own. And what else? You can also find New Jersey DAM panel discussions on YouTube. Keep up to date with everything happening for digital asset management enthusiasts via our New Jersey DAM LinkedIn group and other social connections. Again, speaking of upcoming happenings, be on the lookout for part 2 of this DAM remote working series that will concentrate on employers who manage offsite DAM professionals as well as remote teams and the many benefits that they bring to successful DAM initiatives. I look forward to that being announced soon. We already have a terrific group of panelists being lined up. So I want to thank everyone for being here, especially our panelists. Thank you, panelists. You did an incredible job. Not surprising in your experience, professionalism, and who you are. And of course, I want to thank the audience. We hope you found today's topic informative. And until next time, thank you again for being here. Stay safe, healthy, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you.